Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WeBank, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslan. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book, Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Welcome to Women Who Own It podcast. I am your host, Allison Maslan. I am the founder of Pinnacle Global Network, where we mentor business owners all over the world. And Women Who Own It is brought to you by WeBank, who is the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. And if you are looking for inspiration, you are looking for the next steps, the strategy to take your business to that much higher level, you are in the right place. And talk about powerhouse business leaders. Today, we are bringing you Michelle Boggs, and she is the managing partner at MUTTS Canine Cantina, a Dallas-based social dog park franchise that offers food, beverages, and fun for both 2- and 4-legged customers. A lifelong entrepreneur, Michelle was already the founder and CEO of her own successful marketing firm, McKinley Marketing Partners, when she came across MUTTS in 2014. She knew that the one-of-a-kind restaurant had incredible potential for growth, and she partnered with the co-founders and has gone on to open an additional location in Fort Worth, where they average about 1,500 members every single month. And this serves as the flagship location for their franchising efforts, which we're going to talk all about on the show. And the company sold 11 franchise locations in 2019 and is on pace to close a dozen in 2020. And the concept has proven to be resilient even during COVID-19. While the cantina was closed, the parks were still open to members who had access via a barcode on their phone, and the park was maintained as usual, and membership has soared by 25% in both locations, even during these challenging times. So, Michelle, welcome to Women Who Own It.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you. And when I learned about your concept and what you were doing, I thought, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm sure you hear that all the time. And then I thought, why aren't you in San Diego? Because I want to bring my 2 dogs there, and my bulldog and my retriever. But yeah, so before we go into MUTTS, can you share your a little bit of your backstory, your early journey, and your inspiration to becoming a business owner?
Sure. Well, I grew up around a lifelong entrepreneur, my stepfather, and for some reason I maybe absorbed the DNA of being an entrepreneur, and always thought that I would have my own business, and my goal was to have my own business by the time I was 30. I didn't make it till I was 35, but that is when I co-founded McKinley Marketing Partners, a marketing services company out of Alexandria, Virginia, servicing major corporations around the country.
Yeah, well, I was inspired in business by my dad, so I can so relate to that. I think there's something about being around that energy when you're younger that you see it's possible.
You see it's possible, and you see success, and you see failure. You see persistence, if you will. And then his last company was a home run, and really he ran it for years, sold it, and was quite successful, and had a great life in retirement. So, yeah, it's I guess it's in my DNA, if you will.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I do think seeing those failures and seeing him overcome them, I would imagine, is just as valuable,
Exactly.
So can you share about your discovery of MUTTS and what was it when you saw it and you said, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this?
Well, you really almost took the words right out of my mouth. My husband and I took our dog to MUTTS Canine Cantina in Dallas. And I literally, before I even went into the park area, the off-leash park area, I just stopped dead in my tracks. And I said, Ron, look around. I said, everybody's having fun. The dogs are having fun. Their owners are having fun. The people working here are having fun. I said, this is franchisable, and I want to be driving franchise sales. And I don't know who owns it, but I'm going to find out who owns it. And I want to partner with them and grow this concept. Not only was it just everybody was having fun, but having been in marketing all my life, even prior to owning my own company for 25 years now, the branding was superb. I can't take any credit for it. We've since grown a few things since I've been involved, but it was just whimsical. It made you smile. So kind of fast forward 2 years, I watched the people who owned it. They had several other brands, and I made some assumptions about their involvement in MUTTS and other brands that were bigger concepts than MUTTS. And I'm also a member of an organization called Young Presidents Organization, or YPO. It's actually, I'm in YPO Gold now, which is where you go when you turn old. You're an old president's organization, as I like to call it, OPO. But it's really when you turn 50, you go to YPO Gold. And I was at an event, and I said to a friend, I said, hey, do you know anybody that's involved with the MUTTS concept? And we were nearby there, and I knew he knew of it. And he said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm having lunch with the CEO next week. And I said, well, great. Can you, give me an email introduction? So I did, and he did. And I reached out to my now business partner, Josh Sepkowitz, and said, hey, I'd love to meet with you to talk about franchising MUTTS. So he took the meeting, and a dear friend of mine, also from YPO, he was in my YPO forum for years, Dan Rowe. He's the CEO of FranSmart, which is the largest development firm of franchises. And he and I weren't planning to work together, because when you're in forum together, you can't really do business together. But he, as a friend, came to Dallas, wouldn't let me reimburse him for his flight. He just saw the concept. Having been in this business, the franchising business, for almost 30 years, he knew it was a home run. And he said, Boggs, you don't need me. He said, I'll teach you everything I know, and this is a winner. And so we had several meetings with Josh and his co-founding partner, Kyle Noonan, and struck a deal. And that was, our first meeting was in the fall of 16. We inked our deal in January of 17. We stood up the new flagship, what I call MUTTS 2.0, in October of 2018, launched franchising in December of 18. And as you said, sold 11 last year, technically 9 with an option for 2 more from one particular franchisee. And we're on pace. Actually, an LOI went out today for a 3-unit deal. We've got somebody that just came in for what we call discovery days, where they come to each site. They meet us at our corporate offices over a period of 2 days. And then they decide if they want to move forward or not. And then we send them an LOI, and within 3 weeks, they either are in or they're not. And the group that just came in last week, they will have an LOI going out tomorrow for another 3-unit deal. And we've got a group coming in July, already scheduled for a 3-unit deal in Arizona. And we might have one coming your way. There's a lot of interest in Southern California.
Yeah, well, there's so many dog lovers out here, I will tell you. I think people spend more money on their animals than their children.
Excuse me.
I'm sure you've seen that. People do anything for their dogs. Did you know? Go ahead.
In today's environment, so many of the millennials are waiting or not having children, and their dogs are their kids. And
yes.
And to your point, it's a known fact that people will cut back on themselves versus their pets during a recession. And now that we're technically in a recession, time will tell. as you mentioned, during the lockdown or shelter in place, we saw our memberships soar, even though our cantina wasn't open, because
Yeah.
it's, one of the things we're learning every day about COVID-19, but being outside is certainly safer than being inside. So our members can come and go freely, and their recommendation thus far is not necessarily to wear a mask outside by requirement, but we do practice social distancing outside as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's great being outside, exercising, getting fresh air. It's so good for your body. I want to back up for just a second, because I do think that that's so interesting. And I was interviewing Susie Batiste, who's the founder of Poopery, who's also based in Texas. And when she came up with the idea of Poopery, she felt something in her body. Like immediately, she just knew it was, it was it. And it sounds like when you walked in, there was like a gut feeling, like you just knew, because intuition is something that, we're always in our head and we're looking at numbers and metrics, and all those things, of course, are critical. But there is something about intuition that is so valuable.
Well, exactly. I mean, where did that idea even come from, that I would find them and be a partner and run franchising? But it was inspiration that just came from within when I saw the concept. And in backing up a little, or fast forwarding a little bit, actually, Dan Rowe ultimately, I left the forum that I was in, and he ultimately signed on to be our development partner, because when we launched franchising, we got so much publicity, I could not keep up with the leads. And, I had to step back and look myself in the eye and say, for the better, for the brand, you need to step aside and bring in a professional sales development firm. So that's what we did. And they are off to the races. They're so excited about the brand. They're typically represent quick service restaurants. And with the pet component, their sales folks are kind of falling all over themselves to try to sell MUTTS. So, and as I like to say, we're having so MUTTS fun. And I have a lot of MUTTS puns, MUTTSisms as we call them.
MUTTSism. Oh,
you'll hear a few along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I brought that up because I think sometimes we override our intuition and we question it. And, I think if you're really in tune with it and you went for it, it's so great. But I have a question, because, you went from a service business, which is the marketing world, right? And then into, this, kind of brick and mortar retail in a sense, even though you provide a service in there. Did you have any fears about doing that, making that shift, since you didn't have that background?
No, I didn't. As I've gotten older, I've really come to enjoy learning new things. And this is certainly a labor of love and a passion project, and a good business opportunity. So I just put one foot in front of the other, and I'm learning every day. And with Dan by my side, I've learned a ton from him, even before he joined as our development partner. And every day, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, I'm not what they call an operator in terms of a restaurant operator, but we've hired that. And of course, my business partners, that's what they do. They have a professional management company, and they operate their own brands, concepts. So it's been a great learning experience, and it's a real people business, because at the parks, each one of them has it's very distinct, different personality because of the geographics, wherever they might be. Dallas is more of it's much more densely populated urban area in Uptown, where you've got mostly millennials, a lot of high-rise apartment complexes around there, and most people walking. And basically you become friends, and it's part of your social being, going to MUTTS to be with your friends in your community. In fact, I think it was 2017 that D Magazine dubbed it the top single spot in Dallas.
Lowe's has a proud history of supporting the communities where we live and work. As the pandemic upended small businesses nationwide, Lowe's pledged $55 million in grants to support women and minority-owned businesses, as well as to rural small businesses, which were all affected disproportionately. In addition, Lowe's launched Making It with Lowe's, a virtual pitch program to identify innovative products from diverse small businesses nationwide. For the latest news, follow Lowe's Media on Twitter. Wow.
So, and then by the same token, Fort Worth, we have a lot of millennials, but there are a lot of families there. I actually see strollers in the park. So it's a really tight-knit community. And to that point, I mean, I love people and I love dogs. And we all say around this business, if you're having a bad day, you just go out to the park because, you know, it's never a bad day when you're out with the puppies.
Oh yeah, the dogs, like
Yeah.
every day is like Disneyland, you know.
Yeah.
It's so great. So franchise, you know, just talking about franchises in general, there has been a rising trend in women entering the franchise world. In fact, there was an 83% growth between 2011, 2017, 83% growth in ownership by women, which only 13% by men. Do you know anything about this trend or have any ideas of why more women are getting into franchising?
You know, I don't. I saw that and what was you were going to talk about, and I just haven't had a chance to look into it since then. I just don't know. Could certainly
Yeah.
dig into that with the franchise owners or the franchisors that I've gotten to know, and I've gotten to know CEOs of very large franchises like a Fast Signs, Catherine Monson, who was a star in Undercover Boss at one point. She's been somewhat of a mentor to me. Great lady. They're headquartered here in Dallas, and that's an international company. So I've seen actually women on the franchisor side, and I have seen women on the franchisee side, and that's probably what you're talking about. Are you not, in terms of the franchisees?
You know what? I
Being,
think it's, yeah. You know what? It could be either way, the franchise
yeah,
or franchisee. I mean, they're really just seeing a rising trend overall. Probably the statistics are a little different on either side.
yeah,
But, you know, it could be also that there are so many more women just entering the business world in general. That's probably part of it too.
right, right. And
Which,
as it relates to our prospects thus far, just trying to think of I would say it's about 50-50. And oftentimes it's a husband-wife, our first
right.
franchisor, husband, wife, and sister. And they signed up for a 3-unit deal in Austin, Texas, Austin Round Rock. And so the husband and wife are already in business together in an outdoor movie theater business. And so we see about 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah. Austin's going to be a fantastic market.
Oh,
What a
yeah.
great
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
So, you know, my book that I wrote last year is called Scale or Fail. And you know, one of the best strategies for scaling is franchising, because you take this great concept and then you multiply it. You know, it's like your one-to-many idea. And it's a great way to maximize growth. But I'm sure, since you're talking to all these people interested, it's not for everyone or every business. So how do you know when, you know, if your business is right for franchising, if the person is interested, you can go, yeah, I could see they would make this a success. Is there kind of an X factor there?
Yes. A couple things. I mean, in terms of MUTTS being franchisable, I just felt with every fiber of my being that it would be. And then to back that up, when we partnered with Josh and Kyle, and my husband's involved in the business as well. He's a retired home builder and is handling all the facility development. And I can talk a little bit about sort of the franchise toolkit that we've developed. But I just knew it was franchisable, and my partners had about 50 to 60 leads that they had been taking in. People say, hey, I want to franchise this, I want to franchise this. So they were smart enough to start to track those. So I chased down every one of my leads, and actually one of those leads, and one of them was our first franchisee in Austin. And I contacted her, but it took a while to develop the infrastructure to be a franchisor. And so she jokes now about how she kept bugging me, and she wasn't bugging me, by the way. And I would say, I'm not ready. We've got to do our federal disclosure document that we have to file with the FTC. And so it was quite a process. It took about 18 months to kind of really get our to do it right, I should say. Some people slap together an FDD in a week, and I've heard these stories, but I'm very much, I was going to use, let's just say I'm a perfectionist in some regards. And if you're regulated by the FTC, you want it to be right. You want it to be right anyway. So right. I went to great lengths and to prepare the FDD, and it's as painful to prepare it as it is to read one, I'm sure, because it was a lot of work. What that federal disclosure document does is slices 10 ways to Sunday what your investment looks like, what you have to spend on this, what you have to spend on that. And so it literally is a disclosure document on what the franchisee has to do to open up the doors.
So do you ever, in all of the leads you've talked to, are there certain businesses, do you have any examples, or I don't know, where you just thought, no, I don't think that
Yes.
that they would be good fit for whatever reason?
Yes. So it's very much a two-way street. We're interviewing them and they're interviewing us. So, and that there's a whole vetting process that takes place behind the scenes that doesn't involve me with FranSmart before they're even put in front of me and have our first discussion. And nowadays with the changing of how people communicate, since we're social distancing, we're having video calls, not just phone calls. So definitely by the time that happens, they're vetted financially. And then we talk a little bit about their organization or their aspirations, their dreams, their passion, why they want to be involved. Is it a family business? Is it something for their children? And so by the time they come to Discovery Day, we're interviewing them and they're interviewing us. So yeah, there are quite a few questions that we ask just to make sure that it's not just, it's easy to be passionate about dogs, but we want them to be successful. If they're not successful, we're not successful. So we need to make sure that if they don't have the business acumen to run a MUTTS, then they plan to hire it, because we want to make sure that they're committed to success and that they're going to back it up with hiring the right people. So there's a methodology of questioning to make sure that it's not just, there are, of those 50 to 60 leads, I would say the majority of them were people that they just thought it was such a cool concept, they wanted to have one, and they weren't a good fit for the MUTTS.
Yeah, I think it's so important that you go through that process, because you want them to be successful. And
exactly.
It's kind of like the person that loves pies or loves baking pies is not enough reason to open a pie business, because you might hate the pies after a while,
Right, right.
Because there's the whole business end of it. And I would imagine that there's some key ingredients there that, are key. And like you said, their willingness to build a team.
Exactly. Yep. And be willing to get dirty, because you're out, and I've traded my Armani suits for mulch and MUTTS and mulch is what I say. And because when you're out with the puppies, there's a lot of mulch and dust flying around, and you do come home smelling like mulch. And I've kind of grown to love that smell. That's obviously when I'm in the park, but there's a lot of work to be done outside the park too.
And so what do they need to know? Like, what do you think are the, because some people listening right now are like, God, I wonder if my business is franchisable. You know,
Yeah.
if they're looking are there some things that you could like what would be the top three things that they should think about to determine?
Well, the return on your investment, how quickly that can happen, what your EBITDA is, or your net income if you are taking on debt. Those are two driving factors. And would people want to do that? You see mom and pop shops that maybe aren't replicable.
Mhm.
The food industry, I think there's a proven concept or formula that really grows out of something being such a hit that it just explodes. And you almost can't, I'm not going to use a double negative because I'm also a journalism major. I noticed that you were as well.
Yes.
But you just can't help yourself but want to franchise it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in what you've entered here, it's the concept, the whole concept of it made sense. And, but it is a lot of work to franchise. So you've got to be
Oh yeah,
super committed.
it's definitely a
What,
lot of work. And like I like to say, our concept has legs, pun intended, because we sell merchandise. Obviously, the dog park it has reoccurring revenue, so and that was proven out as a success during COVID. Although I wouldn't ask for that reason for it to be proven out. There we have plans to have food, branded food and treats. We have some branded merchandise already. We obviously have branded apparel. I didn't wear any MUTTS apparel today, but we have it.
yeah, that's great. You have different revenue streams within the revenue
Yes.
stream. You have recurring revenue
Yeah.
streams plus, and that's such a winning combination. What do
Sure.
you,
We have.
what do you,
Sorry. Go
what
ahead.
do you think that, because there's so many franchises that don't make it, or the people that get into franchising and they don't make it. Some of them do within the same franchise. So what do you think the biggest mistakes that the business owner makes, the franchisee that
Well,
prevents
the
them from succeeding?
franchisee or the franchisor or both?
Well, let's talk about both because I
Okay.
think, yeah.
From a franchisor, and that's the lens that I'm looking through, but I also have to be looking through the lens of a franchisee. And we have, I have gone through the opening of the new flagship. And I did that purposely. I did a lot of it myself versus my partner's management team because I wanted to understand it. I wanted to know it. I wanted to be able to coach the franchisees. We have weekly calls with the franchisees that we've signed up, and we have what's called an opening store playbook that, the minute they sign up, it's a very exhaustive process to figure out what to do next, but we give them a roadmap. There's a spreadsheet that they can organize from 52 weeks to opening, from design and construction to administration to technology, marketing. They can organize it any which way they want, look at it by category or by the number of weeks. What has to be done on this week? When do you get your liquor license? When do what do you do after you sign your lease? So from a franchisor's perspective, you really need to set your franchisees up for success, because if they're not successful, neither are you.
Yeah.
I have heard stories, but I'm not been in the business long enough to be an expert on seeing these types of things. But I have heard stories of franchisors not supporting the franchisees properly, not spending the marketing fund on behalf of the brand, and perhaps and that there are requirements that you have to do that. And so I'm sure I'll see more of it as I get into this, but those are some of the stories that I've heard from fellow franchisors, and again, from a franchisee perspective, if given the right tools. And with MUTTS, we really built a toolkit, and it started with the building. We took, and the key learnings that our partners went through, that learned in 5 years in Dallas. And with the help of my husband, we figured out that to build a MUTTS, you need about an acre, but the footprint of the building is only about 1,100 square feet. And to have a general contractor come in and build that from scratch, not a big job for them. Overall, the site development, it's a bigger job. So we went about this the task of finding out companies that pre-manufacture these buildings. So we have a prefab building that's built in the factory outside of Atlanta, and it takes about 8 to 12 weeks to produce it. They literally, I've got a time-lapse video of them building it. It's fascinating. They literally build it, put everything together, put the bathrooms in, the walk-in cooler, HVAC. All the trades come in and inspect it to whatever standards, what the state, they call it a state stamp, that it's going to. So then it's inspected and it's approved as a piece of equipment. Then they take it completely apart, put it on flatbeds, and truck it to wherever it's going, bring in a 120-ton crane, and literally set these two buildings together. And then within 3 days of a punch list, they're done. So that's one thing that we provide as part of the toolkit. Another thing would be the technology, the suite of technologies that they need, the point of sale, the membership management program, the AV setup, the fast signs is our, we have required vendors for all the signage. We have a catalog of signs. So, so on and so on. Same thing with insurance company. We have an insurance company that's underwritten dogs and alcohol, which isn't an easy thing to do, but they have underwriters that are now comfortable. So we've built a toolkit for success for the franchisees. And that we think is going to be key to their success. And so far so good with the folks that are going through the process now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said really, I have not owned a franchise or franchised a company, although I have worked with several business owners who have purchased franchise. And I would say the biggest thing that I've seen is the biggest road to success is when the franchisors like you offer this type of support. I think it's critical because I think sometimes people get into a franchise and they think, oh, this is going to be easy. It's a business in a box. It's all set up. I just need to show up. And, the fact that you do give so much of support and, the weekly calls and your toolkit, you're really setting them up for success. And then everybody wins,
Right.
Right. You try to scrimp on, spending on those kinds of things, and you're going to lose a lot more on the back end.
You cheat the brand, and that would be not good for the franchisees. And you want the franchisees to be happy, successful, and referenceable, because if they're not referenceable, you're not going to sell many franchises.
Yeah, this is good stuff, right? Because if someone's coming to you and they're researching you, they want to talk to successful franchises.
Right. Whether I give them the name or not, they're going to find out who they are. We can, in our federal disclosure document, we have to list who they are. And we can, they can read whatever they want, but where the rubber meets the road is talking to a franchisee that's happy.
Yeah. Fantastic. And so what have been, some of your, just in general, because you've had, many years in the business world, Michelle, what have been some of your biggest business lessons along the way?
Well, some of the core values that we have in the Canine Marketing Partners is, I won't name them all, but loyalty goes both ways is one of them. Always, I'm not going to quote all our core values, but for me, conducting yourself with the utmost of integrity, respect, and integrity. I haven't told the story in a long, long time, but my business partner and I decided in year one, we had a problematic customer and he was not being kind to our contractors, and he had quite a few under this umbrella, this major corporation. And we talked about it and we decided we're not going to work for jerks. So I literally in year one, and they were 80% of our business, I went in to resign the account. And it was hard, but I did it, and I didn't do it at the same time. He apologized and then stood up his whole team in front of the person that he had been pretty rude to and apologized to her. And that ultimately became one of our largest clients for years and years and years. So,
Wow.
integrity.
That's huge.
Yeah. And without it, you don't have anything.
Oh my gosh. Well, you
Right?
know what? I love that you shared this. You know, we don't work with jerks. So like, I mean, there's so many business owners that are, I'm sure they are listening right now that can relate in one way or another. And I think there's a lot of fear to stand up because like you said, it was 80% of your business. That took a lot of courage, you know, but because you did that, look what came out of that. Much more
Yeah.
respect, right?
Right. And I've actually just had a flip side experience with, I've hired a new CFO, and after having one for over 17 years. And so that was a tough breakup, but it needed to happen. And I had an interim CFO and it didn't go so well. And when I hired the new one, one of the things he said to me on the phone, he said, this is going to be a completely different experience for you. I said, well, that's music to my ears. And he said, you know, I don't work for people I don't like. And I'm very particular. And I said, well, I told him about that lesson. And so, you know, I think you treat people the way you want to be treated, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, life is too short. You want to be around people that you feel good around, you know?
Right.
So I think that's great. And hey, having a good CFO is life-changing. I
Oh my
definitely
gosh.
experienced
Yeah.
that in my business. I should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
Makes life a lot easier.
it really does, to just understand your numbers and the trajectory and where you're going and to make those important decisions. So you pivoted during COVID, you know, because if you think restaurants really were hit
Hmm.
hard,
Yeah.
but you were able to manage and even grow. How did you like, you know, what was the shift that happened when this started coming down in March for you?
Well, one of the things that we were really excited about, we weren't excited about the shutdown, but we were excited about the fact that we were an outdoor concept and that we theoretically could have stayed open from a food and beverage perspective. But then what happened was when the state, most of them I think even did, ban gatherings of 10 or more. Then, I mean, we've got 3/4 of an acre of land when you take away the building, the parking lot, and the concrete around it. We felt like it was a safe place to be, but we had got a few dings on social media that said people weren't social distancing. Do y'all know this is happening? So we were only open a day after the shelter in place. From the cantina perspective, selling, you know, our revenue streams are alcohol, food, merchandise, and recurring revenue. So we just made the decision it was the right thing to do to close the cantina. So like I said, we were able to allow the members that had recurring monthly or annual memberships, or even you can buy a day pass through our portal and still get a barcode to let you in. We were able to keep that going, whereas all the parks in Dallas and Fort Worth, they were locked up, the public parks. You couldn't get in them.
Yeah.
So we offered a secure, access controlled, safe environment outside, and people wanted to be outside with their dogs. People wanted to be outside, period, just because we were all going stir crazy, right?
Yes.
But we continue to maintain. We still had some staff maintaining the park, keeping it clean, emptying the trash cans and, making sure the restrooms were kept clean. And once we reopened, we definitely have in place today COVID procedures. We social distance in the cantina as well as out in the parks, and have a sanitation protocol, if you will, that's fairly significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because it's different state by state.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm really glad that you were able to make that shift. And I mean, you were outside, so how perfect is that?
Yeah.
And so, this podcast is brought to us by WeBank, and I'm just curious how WeBank has been a support to you in your business overall.
Well, they've been a support since day one. I became WeBank certified in 2000, and the organization has brought so many gifts into my life, primarily people, wonderful women business owners, wonderful friends from the corporate world, because you have the two membership bases are women business owners and corporate America, to pair those folks to give women a more equal footing, more access to winning contracts. So along the way, I've just made lifelong friends, and they've always been a great resource historically. However, I will say that since COVID hit, Pam Eason, who you no doubt have met, she's the CEO, and she's a force to be reckoned with. She is an amazing woman, and
Yes.
she and her team have pulled together content resources. It's phenomenal. It gives me goosebumps what they have done to support women-owned businesses, through really tough times, because many businesses have struggled. Some may not make it. Some may have already failed. Some have pivoted and are enormously growing as a result, depending on the product or service that they're offering. But WeBank has been just wonderful. It amazes me every day, the level of energy that Pam has, and the passion that her entire team has. They are just so committed to the cause. Everybody's always smiling, and the content that they've been delivering during the COVID lockdown, and still we're at work, mostly not working in the offices. We can't gather for our events, so they're offering virtual webinars, seminars, discussions. Then the content's been amazing. They brought a lot of partners to bear, and they're continue to. And we've got weekly calls in various different groups. There was one last night related to, the racial bias that we're all witnessing and have for years. And so there's an uprising there to do what we can to help in that regard as well.
Yeah, it's so great. Well, and they've always been very dedicated to diversity and inclusion. It's a big part of what WeBank is all about. Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. I was actually in right before the quarantine. I was in DC at WeBank headquarters, delivering a workshop, literally days before. So I was glad I was able to eke that in.
Yeah.
It was great to be there and great to connect with everyone. And so yeah, super grateful for this organization. Just a few more things I want to ask you. This is, thank you for sharing all this. This is really valuable information.
Pleasure.
And you're running two businesses. You've got, MUTTS, and you still have your marketing business. How do you handle running two companies and still making sure you're taking care of yourself?
Well, that's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Your life.
We just hit 18-year anniversary on Monday.
My husband. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. So that's a great question. That I often say I don't know how, but I just figure it out. And the taking care of yourself part is the hardest, particularly the last 3 to 4 months. All of us have been taxed. I'm sure you've been through it. It's a grind to figure out how do we for instance, with McKinley Marketing Partners, how do we pivot to where we can still market our services and not, particularly if you're cold calling? I know I can't see ourselves cold calling anybody right now. So we have to figure out how to pivot and come out of this on the other side, a stronger, more well-balanced company. And we're working really hard, and many other businesses, women business owners, minority business owners, and business owners alike are trying to do the same thing, to figure out how do we come out with greater market share? How do we survive in many cases? The PPP has been a godsend to small businesses for sure. But it's a challenging time. There's no question that my two of my clients, I would say, and our largest client is in energy business, and our third largest client is in the hotel business. So we lost a lot of business pretty much overnight, and so it's a challenge. But the taking care of yourself part is, especially as women, I think we tend to put ourselves last. I kick myself. We're at home. We're working harder. We're working longer hours, but we should be able to find a little time to exercise every day, right? And I kick myself this opportunity, or as I like to say in the MUTTS world, this opportunity to come out of it as in the best shape of my life. But I've tended to exercise less versus more, and that's on me and no one else. But I know others that are.
We could have done jumping jacks while we did this interview. Yeah. That probably would have been good.
How about give me 10 push-ups?
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, it's, you said some really important things there. I think, depending on the industry that you're in, it is, for sometimes some companies are doing really well right now. Some are struggling more, but definitely having to work harder to figure it all out. It's not like, the plan as usual. And so being innovative is critical right now. Being innovative and persistent and taking care of yourself. So I totally get it. And so many businesswomen do put themselves last until all of a sudden they wake up and they are so burned out. So it is so important to do that.
And that's what part of this organization brings to each one of us that are members. The sisterhood, if you will. We've been able to lean on people, lean on each other, support each other, buy from each other. So, I mean, that WeBank brings that to the table, and I'll be forever grateful for the friendships that I've made over the last, gosh, how many years?
Yeah.
Long time.
That's
20
awesome.
something. Yeah.
Well, I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Me too,
wow.
Allison. So nice meeting you.
Yeah, this has been great. So what's next for MUTTS? Like what do we, besides hopefully having one here in San Diego?
Yes, well, we're continuing to sell, and we're, as I mentioned, we're helping to get several open by the end of the year. Hopefully 2 to 3 will open by the end of 2020. COVID slowed that down a little bit, just as it related to jurisdictions not working up to speed in terms of permitting and so forth. But we're, I hope to have maybe 5 to 10 new units up next year in 2021. And I think that our goal of selling 10 this year is probably going to be blown out, despite the fact that we had pretty much 3 months of not being able to have discovery days. We have a lot of pent-up demand for discovery days because people have a lot of time on their hands, and they saw that this was a great concept, loved it. The fact that it's outside doesn't hurt. So I see meteoric growth, frankly, and building the infrastructure and helping. One of the great things that I love about this too is that I'm helping other people realize their dreams as being a business owner. So that's very rewarding.
It is. And you know what? We're going to be a better world when there's more places to take our dogs. So like you're changing the world too. We need some more happy places right now. So Michelle, thank you so much for being with us on Women Who Own It. podcast. And if you have not subscribed yet, hurry and do so. You can do so on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere where you find podcasts. And when you subscribe, and then you get noticed every time we have a new episode to send you. So until next time, get out there and elevate yourself because you are worth it. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.